Hello and welcome, Tino here, and I got a question: what is better, laissez-faire or interventionism? Before explaining laissez-faire and interventionism, I need to explain you how the construction and construction points work. If you go to the construction tabs in the press F3 construction, you will see that the total number of construction points that I have are 84, but I'm only using 29. These construction points are spent between the private sector and the public sector. This is the public sector. I am not building anything right now. And this is the private sector. The private sector are the construction that the investment pool builds. Here it says that the investment pool is saving for another construction. When they reach 100%, they will add a new task here and they will start using construction points. As you can see, they are building right now a munitions plant and they use 29.4 construction points. On the public sector, I'm not building anything, so the total number of construction points used are 29 out of 84. Let's say that I want to build something anywhere, and I'm going to click a few construction and press F3 now, and I see in the public sector that I'm using 30 points in this construction, 29 here and no points here because I ran out of construction points. And now let's see, I'm using 84 out of 84. I'm using the full capacity of the construction capacity. So now let's go back to the cards. Interventionism says 50% allocated to private construction. If you go to laissez-faire, it means in French, let people do, they will allocate 75% to the construction allocation. Let me show you. Laissez-faire, 75 allocated to the private construction sector. And what does that exactly mean? This means that if you have more construction here, they will use 75 of these points in these queues. And these public queues will use less, but since I'm only using 29, the rest of the private construction points are using in the public sector. So as an example, let's say that you have 100 points and you are using interventionism. This means that you're going to be using 50 points on this side and 50 points on the other side. If both queues are full with a lot of queues, the construction orders, they will give 50 points to each side. But if, for example, like in this example, the private sector only is building this building, 29, they will use the remaining points on the public sector. On the other hand, if the public sector is completely empty, it will use 100 points into the private sector. And that's the same with if you have 75% allocated to private, well, they will give priority to the private sector using 75% of the construction points and 25 to the public, but it's only priority. If the private sector is empty, they will use the remaining points in the public sector. But remember that you only pay for the construction that you have on the public. So in this example, we have a huge surplus of cash because we are not building anything, and this construction queue is paid by the private sector. If we add things to the queue, you are going to see that you are spending a lot of money and now we are in a small deficit. So you're going to be seeing a transfer from the pool sometimes, and this means that it's kind of confusing because you are building and suddenly you have your building construction queue number 1 and 2, and suddenly you are building number 3 and 4. That's because here you will see a 0 means that the private sector finish completing constructing its project, so they are going to be spending all the points into the public sector, and you're going to be paying for this, so you can go into the negative very quickly. So I recommend in that situation, especially when you are using laissez-faire, then don't go too crazy, maybe leave 2 queues at the start of the game, or maybe even 1, so you keep the cash under control. If you see a negative number, it's because they are not building anything on the private sector, so they are transferring all the points to the public sector, and you have far more construction capacity, but that means that you're going to be spending an extra lot in construction goods. So as a conclusion, in that aspect, having 75 or 50% construction allocation for me is exactly the same, because if I want more construction power into the public sector, I just build more construction sector, so I will end up quickly in the private queues, and we have more free power for the public sector. But just be cautious about not overspending, so don't add too many queues in the public sector. So now let's go to the other important details. The next point on interventionism is that you can subsidize every building, and that's not necessarily a positive thing, because you only need to subsidize transport, and you can do that with laissez-faire. The only advantage that I see there is that you can subsidize urban centers. You can see them here. These are urban centers that produce services, and service should be subsidized, and you cannot subsidize this if you are laissez-faire. The only small advantage that I see so far on interventionism. And now let's go to laissez-faire. You have a small advantage with loan interest -25. It's okay. You can subsidize the infrastructure, that is the transport, so it's critical that you can do that. But the huge advantage here is that you have 25% more investment into the capitalists and shopkeepers, especially the capitalists, that are the ones that give you 20% investment. Well, you are going to be having 25 extra. That means you are going to be growing 25% faster in the private sector. The investment pool, that is, let me show you. These are the private construction, and this is the investment pool. This number here will grow 25% faster, or at least more than 20, because the capitalists are the main contributors to this pool. Usually, it depends on the type of building that you are using. For example, if you are using this option, is the better, because you have more capitalists. But all the industrial buildings, especially when you have high-level production method, they all have capitalist owners. On the other hand, if you have like this width, you're having aristocrats as owner, and aristocrats pay only 10% instead of 20%. So it depends a little bit on the type of building that you have. If you have iron, you're going to have capitalists as owners, and also you have laws that improve that a lot. Let me show you. In the social sector, you have this one, that is the postal investment, and this one that is kind of a super stock exchange that allows you to change all the production methods, so you have more capitalists, and this synergizes very, very well with laissez-faire. So if you combine laissez-faire with this one, you're going to have a huge growth of your economy into the private sector. So I will say that usually laissez-faire is much better, but there are a few exceptions. Let's say that you have very little space and you want to plan your economy. Let's say that you want to build a sulfur mine in Santiago, and then you want to put there fertilizers and to put an explosive plants and use some sort of change and very planned economy. Well, you can do that with laissez-faire, because they will start building anywhere that the system, that the investment pool thinks that is better, but that not may be always the case. And if you find this useful, please subscribe, like, and take a look at the channel. You're going to be seeing a lot of videos that you may find interesting if you enjoy this kind of game. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one. And if you have any question, please leave it down below. See you.